Okay, so thank you for coming and watching as we present what I've been working on for the last year. Something that I'm a little bit excited about because I needed to make an impact at Kenwood. I had kind of drifted for the last couple of years and being known as like the girl that always just stayed really late. And so I was afraid that I wasn't really making an impact on the school as much as I wanted to. So I'm going to talk to you today about how a highly structured after-school program, which was designed by me and led by me 2 days a week, led to some academic growth. And I'd like to see that if it's successful, if we can continue it to make our community a little bit better. So what you know about Kenwood is what we need to go over first. We're here in Kenwood. We're at Crestwood, Kentucky, and we've got a population right now about 650. We drift every day, a few more, a few less. Last year we had a little bit over 630, and of that, 170 students were enrolled in after-school care, which is about 27% of our population. We also have been a distinguished school. We've had some success over the last few years. However, the thing that makes us a little bit different is that we've had many principals. We've had a lot of turnover in the last couple years. So we're on administration number 8 in the last 5 years since our opening. In the last 5 years, I've had 4 different principals that I've had to get to know and report. So we appreciate that you guys are here on year number 3. So the motivation behind what it was that we designed. I kept listening to parents and teachers in the hallway for 3 years say, "Oh, the jungle, it's not quite the same experience. Kiddos would be a little bit more out of control. We had an increase of behavior. We even had kiddos just flat out wasting time." As a teacher, I would come in and we would check reading logs or homework, and I would see blank agendas or no math homework. And to me, I thought, well, what were you doing? You were here for an extra 3 hours. I know that you had a homework rotation. What were you doing? And so as a teacher, I thought, okay, are we really doing what's best if I'm here until 6:30 and 7 o'clock at night, and they're here until 6:30 or 7 o'clock at night? What can we do to make what we do from 8 to 3 look more like what happens from 3 to 6? I talked to a few of the parents that pulled their 4th graders out that year, which would have been in 2014, 2015, who pulled their kids out of jungle specifically because their behaviors were increasing and things weren't getting done. And I think it made such an impact because it was done publicly. I remember a little boy's parents came in and they said, okay, he's just going to start riding the bus home. And it was kind of the first thought of, I'm putting this child on the bus to really go home by themselves. Other kids I could put on the bus and think, oh, maybe there's a parent home. But I knew for this particular kid, when I was putting him on the bus for the last 6 weeks of school, that his parents were going to be at work and that he was doing this by himself. And so that caused me a little bit of anxiety because I thought, well, he's not really in a good routine. What's he going to do for the next couple hours? Plus, he'd been making some poor choices, and I was worried about what he might get into by himself. On the school level, our jungle, its high enrollment, benefits our school. We get to pay for a math coach. We get to pay for interventionists. We get instructional materials that we wouldn't have access to. But every time we lose a kid, we lose a couple of dollars. And so even though a school's not meant for profit, those two relationships, the jungle and the school, they really go hand in hand. So what could we do to help our jungle be more successful so that our classrooms are more successful and benefit in the end? So that led me to 3 research questions. Started to think, what if we changed the structure of our jungle so that it looked more like a classroom? What impact would it have? Even farther down the road, could that impact its enrollment? If we were able to say our students that are in jungle are achieving at X level, maybe more people would want to enroll. That would then benefit our school. So the first thing I wanted to look at was what's the relationship between classroom structure and academic performance. I also wanted to know about after-school care programs in general. Could high structure impact a student, their performance, their behavior, and so on? Finally, I had to look at homework down to the completion rate, participation points mostly, not so much accuracy, but does completing your homework have a positive impact on students? Homework in our school is usually reading log. It's maybe 15 minutes of extra math practice a night. We're not talking about 2-3 hours worth of work that we're going to ask our elementary kiddos to do. So I wanted to look and see if we can make this more productive. So here's what I decided to do once I found some research. Looking at homework, we found that homework is a vital component to independent learning. that if you use homework much like you'd use the guided release model, that a student can perform independently if given the right supports. Students who need the most time, though, to complete their work are usually the ones that don't complete it. So our lower achieving students who need a little bit more guidance are the ones that just give up on that independent phase at the end of the day and don't even try. I also saw that the achievement gap widens as students continuously fail to do their homework. So those kiddos that start a little bit behind, if they don't take the opportunity to use that independent work time at the end of the day, they're going to continue to fall behind. Finally, you have to think about what this does for a student. As they see that score of either a participation score being 0 or low, as they see other students being more successful and comparing themselves, it has a true effect on their motivation and their attitude. On the next hand, homework supports. If we were to design and create a support program for homework completion, as long as they're in connection or model closely to a classroom, they can be very successful. Research also found that it creates a strong philosophy of respect and success for all. So a student that sees assistance in the afternoon during homework, they can see a teacher say, oh, you know, this person must really care about me. They want to see that I'm doing this okay. They're going to see that they're doing just as well as a student that's at home, either participating by themselves or even maybe with parent involvement. It also represents a no excuses and do whatever it takes kind of mentality. So I feel like I have that mentality of I do whatever it takes to make this kiddo successful, but what could we do to grow that culture in our school might be a next step for us. And so since research found that that was a strong component, I thought I already have this, then let's go ahead and start creating a homework support system and see what it can do. This is where the passion kind of comes in because it's directly connected to our work yesterday and over the last year with PBIS. So creating a strong classroom culture, we know, helps kids lower their misbehavior, increase their academic growth. By implementing PBIS channels in this classroom and in an after-school care, we're helping our students be more successful. We know that PBIS is multi-tiered, so we can do things at the school level, we can do things within this classroom, and we can do things for each individual student to make them successful. That even means we could reach it into an after-school program and help those kiddos that are enrolled in that program. Building a strong relationship is the most important thing. So a kiddo seeing a teacher or an after-school program leader or any adult really coming down to them at the end of the day to help them complete their homework at the end of the day will go a long way in helping them see, hey, this person really cares about me. We know that PBIS is a proactive management system where if you can spot it or you can prevent it, then you can usually find success. So right now I'm thinking, I know that the proactive choice is to increase the structure based on the observations that I have as a teacher looking at our jungle program. And I'm going to start building in supports so that our students see the same structure and can't misbehave. They can do their homework instead. Finally, we need to build more predictable routines. The kiddos are used to going to a rotation for homework, but once they got in that rotation, they just kind of sat there or they wasted their time. So by creating a support system where they know, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this first, I'm going to do this next, then they know what their afternoon will look like. So here's what I did. I pulled 15 students to start, and usually those 15 students were at the recommendation of a homeroom teacher, one of the 4 of our homerooms. And those were the students that were either not doing their homework the first part of the year, around the first 4 weeks. They were the students that needed more support, or they were the students that we generally knew didn't have the home support, and so we wanted to give them an extra opportunity to get their work done. Of that, there were 4 students that we would label our behavior kiddos that were frequently engaging in misbehavior, like being off task or talking or being disrespectful, nothing too large. We also had 5 academic intervention students participate. On the other side, there was a control group. I pulled 15 randomly selected 4th graders. I did that by random draw based on our class roster. There were 2 behavior concerns in that randomly selected group and 3 interventions, so similar profile. The only factor that we considered in taking out for our control group was if I knew that you had a tutor or participated in a structured academic support system like Kumon or Mathnasium, then that would have skewed the data possibly, so I removed that person from the control group. And I supervised the homework club when I was in the building, so that was usually Mondays and Thursdays is when we met. So I picked my kiddos up at 3:40 on Mondays and Thursdays. Would have loved to have joined them on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but faculty meetings and PLC meetings prevented me from doing that. 3:45 is their assigned rotation. So I picked them up, and every day we went to the restroom first. That way nobody could come down here, get settled, and then 5 minutes in say, "Can I go to the bathroom?" Because that wastes time. Once they got in here, they had very, very similar setup as they did to when they were in my classroom. So I have a flexible seating classroom, so they had their choice of where they needed to be. They knew that if they weren't making the right choice, if they were distracted by that choice, that I would ask them to change their location. I also asked them to always be prepared and come to me with the materials they need, so that we didn't have a situation where they realized, oh, I need my math book for this, and they'd have to go across and get some additional resources. I also let them use anything in the classroom that they needed, whether that was the computer, if it was whiteboards, if it was any type of math manipulatives, anything that they had during the day they had access to in this classroom. I did manage their voice level, and I did manage their productivity. I usually worked a little bit, 2-3 minutes, and then I'd scan and circulate the room, making sure that what they saw during the morning was the same as what they saw in the afternoon. And they knew that they weren't going to be able to take advantage and do fake reading. They weren't going to be able to play on their phones. Those little instances were cut down. Finally, the big thing that I did is every day when we came in, we talked about how much reading do you need to do today, what's your assigned task, and we started setting alarms. So on my phone in the afternoon, I usually had 7 alarms because there was a 15-minute crew, there was a 20-minute crew, a 25-minute crew. One always liked to read for 30, and then you had the little outlier, little girl with a lot of personality. She really liked to read for 45 minutes. So we constantly set a timer, and they knew that when their timer went up, then if it needed a signature in their agenda, if it needed a reading log, then I would be the initials. Several of them would then go home and have mom and dad check over their work or whatever, so there would be 2 initials, but I did have it agreed that from Mr. Tracy, Ms. Blankenship, and Ms. Canoes that if they saw KW, then it was just because they came to homework club. In order to complete the study, I had to pull some data. So I have to thank the 4th grade teachers for letting me access their grades. We're good at sharing because of flexible grouping, so I always have access to their math grades, but this time I got access to their reading scores. And so here's a look at our homework club, the 15 students and their progression of math. You can see in the far column their average growth from fall to spring for each student. These are the kiddos that participated 2 days a week in the homework club. Some strong gains, math especially. These are the scores from our control group, the students who may have completed their homework but didn't have a necessary structure that they were going to follow. Still positive, but a little bit low. Here's our homework participation scores. Our pink is the homework club. Blue is the control group. Remember that only meeting 2 days a week means that 2 days a week the kiddos were responsible for their own completion. So I would have liked to see how if we met for 4 days, if the average for homework club would have been higher, such as 95% or closer to 100, because I know that every day that they were in my room, they were 100%. The results are a little bit undetermined. So what we'd like to see is a higher homework participation points, meaning a higher growth. And we see that in some instances, but it doesn't really look like there's a strong correlation right there between those 2 factors. That's for reading. For math, same thing. There's no strong correlation, at least significant, that you can determine based on our scatter plot. Now, where we do see a little bit of change is when we go to the control group, our scatter plot falls slightly lower. So we can see that our students are growing more in the homework club. Hopefully that's because of the structure. In math, about the same. Now the thing that I noticed the most in math is we have two students. One who had really low participation in homework, who grew the least. One who had an extremely high participation score, grew the most. This kiddo completed 100% of their homework throughout the year, and he happened to grow the most. It might be worthwhile to interview those two students and ask them what their afternoon looked like to see if kiddo on top had a structure, if he knew exactly what he was going to do and had a plan, and see if this kiddo down here didn't have the same support. Again, though we didn't see a strong connection between completing the homework and their achievement, we do see that if you participated in homework club, you generally had a higher academic performance. We probably need more data, longer study period, in order for us to make a real significant correlation between the two. So like we talked about, there's no statistical correlation between completion and growth, but we saw positive results from implementing the structure. I know from being here every day after school that those kiddos that came to our classroom in the afternoon had lower behavior incidents in jungle. So there was a positive impact in terms of the management that they were provided by being in a structured environment. There's also a little bit of an emphasis that if we continue to improve our culture, our relationships with kids, our structure, setting, not only establishing, but keeping them accountable towards very high expectations, that our kiddos will hopefully move in the right direction in terms of their academic growth. What do we need to do next? So year one was pretty successful. I think it could be more successful if given more time. But what should we do in order for this to really make a difference? Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is train our jungle staff in PBIS strategies. They volunteer their time, they work very hard, but sometimes the treatment of our kids is so different that it almost startles me that we have a child that does so great and is on the up and up, and then they go to jungle and not only do they look totally different, but they're treated totally different. So I'd like to see more consistency across the 8 to 3 plus the 3 to 6 time frames in terms of when they're in school. We really need to emphasize that relationship building, how important it is that a child connect to their adult supervisor, because it can lead to emotional, behavior, and academic success. I think we also need to implement homework club for grades 3, 4, and 5. If we increase the structure in the rotation that's already set, then we might find more success for more students. I think what that means, though, is that we really need to clarify what we're expecting out of homework. One of the problems that I noticed is I pulled them at 3:40. We started about 3:45. I didn't drop them back off at their next rotation until 4:30. Sometimes when I would drop them off at 4:30, they'd hang out in their homework rotation for 10 or 15 more minutes. So that's an hour of homework time. I don't expect my 4th graders to ever sit in my classroom for an hour and do anything academic. So asking them to take an hour of their after school time is kind of asking a lot. So we probably need to clarify what teachers expect out of homework. And then we need to talk to Jungle and create a schedule that's a little bit more consistent. Maybe 30 minutes, especially like at the 3rd grade time, because then there's less time for misbehavior, there's less time for kind of anarchy, for lack of a better phrase. Also need to continue to track data so that we can see what happens next year if we do it for 4 days a week, or if we do it for more grades, to make sure that we're really growing our students and having an academic impact. Last thing that I had to do is I had to think about, how is this going to prepare me? How does it connect to what we do? Love standards. One of the things that I felt I got the most out of in terms of doing this project, and one of the reasons I did this project, was because I really wanted to make an impact, and I really wanted to change the projection of some of the things that we're doing at the school. So a leader is someone that promotes efficient practice, promotes professional development. And through this process, if I'm able to talk to Jungle and help them with their PBIS strategies, then that's a way that I can grow other people in the building. Also had to use some technology. One of the things that was most successful is Dropbox. If you put a grade on Dropbox right now for our 4th grade, then I have access to it, and I didn't have to track teachers down this summer as I was working. So it improves the efficiency by using technology. Also was able to offer technology after school to kids that didn't have technology. So we were providing a service to our kids that is very beneficial to them. Do you happen to have any questions for me? Yeah, go.
Go ahead.
How much of this information or of what you were doing when you pulled kids do you feel Jungle staff is aware of?
Well, I talked to Missy last summer in August to let her know kind of what I was thinking. And because there were so many 4th graders, there were 30 enrolled 4th graders. One of the things that she thought was, wow, that would really help out my leader. But I would say day to day, we probably weren't in as communication in terms of what the expectation was. So it could be a conversation that we have again for sure, especially in terms of setting that expectation and
Right.
what they want. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too, just her knowing the outcome. Like, hey, Missy, I talked to you a year ago and this is what I did.
Yeah.
And look what came of it.
Right.
That knowledge for her could be beneficial as she starts to structure for this school year.
That's true.
Awesome job.
Yeah, I'm, again, totally impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it does point out some glaring differences and weaknesses with our after-school program.
It's just something that we've done so well. I mean, in terms of you all joining us and helping this transition.
Yeah.
And like get on the right page. So we've kind of fixed the primary component of education. So now if we focus on the little things, the extracurriculars, then I think our community would really appreciate it because it's growing. So
Yeah.
Do you feel like when you had that group of kids in here, like what did, and even if it was, I was at my computer working, that's okay if that's the answer, but like what were you doing?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you. So most days I would start out the first 5 minutes that they had to be doing something independently. I would set the stage that I'm not going to give them too much, that we were all in here to be productive together. So for 5 minutes I would finish up the email or get settled, and then I would start to drift. A lot of days, usually on Thursdays, because we had formatives on Fridays, and that's when our summative tests were always usually on Fridays. On Thursdays would be days where I would pull up the small group and kind of help those, especially my girls, with their math and with a little bit more emphasis and instruction. So some days I was over there modeling, this is how we need to work hard for the next 30 minutes. Some days I was, no, you need the assistant, so what do we need to do to make you successful with traditional algorithm? Or long division. We did a lot of long division. So they could certainly raise their hand if they had a question, if they didn't understand something. Vocabulary words were kind of a big thing when we're doing reading. So there was that connection to a teacher, there was instruction happening, but it was also facilitating their independence in terms of their homework.
So it wasn't just time.
No, it wasn't
to
just
work. It was
you're in this
instruction
trapped building. It was,
Yeah.
you don't really understand those fractions,
Right.
but bring them over and let's do it.
Because I think that is probably one of the areas in which, there's nothing against them, but them as instructors, like that block of
worries
time
them.
is literally just a block of time.
Yes.
So when kids don't feel like they can go to anybody for help or instruction or whatever, well,
Right.
yeah, if I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not gonna ask somebody who may not be able to help me and embarrass myself, so I'm
Yeah.
just gonna play around or whatever. And an hour,
Right.
like you said, is a long
A
time.
long time. And usually after the last real timer, if I let aside our quirky little girl and her longer timer, the 25-minute or 30-minute alarm, after that went off, then I would let them mill around and create partners. A lot of times they would give each other math problems that they would work on. Sometimes they'd come to me and say, I really like changing mixed numbers and improper fractions. Will you give me more worksheets? So I've burned up a lot of extra ink, given extra practice to fill that time so that after the assigned 30-minute time that their teacher was expecting of them, that they still had something academic to do. It wasn't watching movies and coloring. It was productive. A couple times even the 5th graders were like, can I come down to your, I have homework this afternoon. So even though the group was 15 of data that I tracked, there were usually about 20 kids in here. And I think a lot of that was because of their relationship. They were like, why would I go to the library and get shushed all the time? Why wouldn't I go hang out with Miss Wilkinson? And so I got 3 extra kids a lot from last year's crew that liked to hang out. So cool, it's a component.
Yay!